Welcome to NIOS live classes. Subject Environment Science. Class 12th, book number 333, Module 2, Ecological Concepts and Issues. Lesson 5, Ecosystem. Part 3. Part 2 we have completed, and now we are going to start part 3, but before that let's revise what we have learned in part 2. First, we have learned the pond as an example of a complete and independent ecosystem, and second, the structure of a pond ecosystem and how it works using solar energy. Also, we had studied that the biotic, which is living, and abiotic, which is non-living components found in a pond ecosystem. And we know the different zone of a pond and the organisms living in each zone. And also the producers, consumers and decomposers present in a pond ecosystem. How energy flows through the food chain in an ecosystem. The importance of maintaining ecological balance and understanding the function of an ecosystem. Like how ecological balances is important. Now let's start our topic, which is ecosystem function with energy flow through ecosystem. 5.3. Food chains and energy flow are the functional properties of ecosystem which make them dynamic. They show how living components such as plants, animals and biotic or non-biotic components such as sunlight, water, air, soil and minerals, how they interact with each other, biotic and abiotic. .3.1 we are going to know about food chain. A food chain is the path through which food and energy are transferred from one organism to another. It starts with green plants and continues as one organism eats another. there is an example of food chain. At first, grass is the producer, then grasshopper eats grass, then frog eats grasshopper, and then snake eats the frog, and then eagle eats the snake. Trophic levels. Each step in a food chain is called a trophic level. Some more examples of food chain. Some more examples of food chain given in this slide. At first column you can see the trophic level, and in the second you can see the organisms, and at last column you can see their role. For example, first trophic level, organism, grass, and role, they are producer, and then second, grasshopper is organism and their role is primary consumer, and third is frog, their role is secondary consumers, and then trophic level 4, the organism is snake, their role is tertiary consumer, and then fifth, eagle, top consumer. Here is the visual explanation of that table. Energy flow in a chain. The sun is the main source of energy. Green plants prepare food by photosynthesis. And this energy passes from one organism to another through food chain. At each trophic level, some energy is lost as heat. Therefore, only a small amount of energy reaches the next level. This is why a food chain usually has only 4 to 5 trophic level. In this trophic level, first comes autotrophs. Autotrophs are producers which are mainly green plants that make their own food. They are called producers because they produce food for themselves and provide food for other organisms in the ecosystem. Plants use to make their food, first they use sunlight, second water, and third carbon dioxide. Through a process called photosynthesis, Plants convert these simple non-living substances, also called inorganic materials, into food, or we can say chemical energy. The energy stored in the food made by plant is called gross primary production. In short, we can call it GPP. This is also known as total photosynthesis or total assimilation. Plants use some of his food and energy for their own growth and respiration, and the remaining food or energy is stored in the plant and becomes available to animals and other organisms that eat plant. This is called NPP. Formula of how can we get GPP? We can get it by total food produced by green plants through photosynthesis. And how can we get NPP? We can gain it by subtracting GPP with food used by the plant for respiration. It's time for short break. Welcome back to our classes. And the trophic level is herbivorous. Herbivorous are the animals which eat the plants directly, are called primary consumers or herbivorous. For example, insects, birds, rodents and ruminants. And the third trophic level is carnivorous. They are the secondary consumers. If they feed on herbivorous and tertiary consumers, if they use carnivorous as their food. For example, frog, dog, cat and tiger, etc. And the fourth trophic level is omnivorous. These are the animals that eat both plants and animals. For example, pig, bear, humans. And fifth level of trophic is decomposers. They take care of the dead remains of organisms at each trophic level and help in recycling of the nutrients. For example, bacteria and fungi. There are two types of food chain. First is grazing food chain, which starts from the green plants that make food for herbivorous and herbivorous in turn for the carnivorous. For example, at first grass, then grasshopper, then frog, then snake and then eagle. And second chain is detritus food chain. These start from the dead plants or organic matter to the detritivore, such as earthworms and some insects. For example, dead leaves, then earthworms, and then they eat by bird and then hawk. In an ecosystem, the two chains are interconnected and make Y-shaped food chain. These two types of food chains are first, which includes herbivorous and carnivorous, and second, which includes detritus, feeders and carnivores, and they both start from the producers, which are green plants. Five point 3.2 Food web. Trophic level in an ecosystem are not linear, rather they are interconnected and make a food web. Thus, food web is a network interconnected food chains existing in an ecosystem. One animal may be a member of several different food chains. As you can see, the visual explanation of the food web, food webs are more realistic models of energy flow through an ecosystem. Energy flow in an ecosystem is always one way, or we can say a linear. This means energy moves in only one direction and does not come back. The energy starts from the sun and passes from one organism to another through the food chain. At each step, some energy is used by the organism for its activities and is lost at heat, and the leftover is passed on the trophic level. As you can see on the screen, this is the model of energy flow through an ecosystem. Boxes indicate the standing crop biomass and pipes indicate the energy flow. NU represent not utilized and R represent respiration. Five point 3.3 Ecological pyramid. Ecological pyramids are the graphic representations of trophic levels in an ecosystem. They are pyramid in shape and they are of three types. The producers make the base of the pyramid and the subsequent tiers of the pyramid represent herbivore and then carnivore and top carnivore levels. Let's take a short break. Welcome back to our classes. First we will look pyramid of number. This represents the number of organisms at each trophic level. For example, in a grassland, the number of grasses is more than the number of herbivores that feed on them, and the number of herbivores is more than the number of carnivores. In simple, we can say more producers, then fewer herbivores, and then very few carnivores. In some instances, the pyramid of number may be inverted, that is, herbivores are more than primary producers, as you may observe that many caterpillars and insects feed on a single tree. As you can see, there is a graphic representation of trophic level with 3 levels. Second is pyramid of biomass. It shows that the total amount of living matter, or we can say biomass, present at each trophic level of an ecosystem. Standing crop biomass means the amount of living matter present at particular time. It is usually measured in grams per unit area or calories per unit area. In most terrestrial economic and ecosystems like forest and grasslands, the pyramid of biomass is upright. This means producers have the highest biomass, followed by herbivorous, carnivorous and top carnivorous. For example, first come plants, then herbivorous and then carnivorous, and after top carnivorous. Or if we look at biomass, so plant has high biomass and then it decreases. However, in case of aquatic ecosystems, the pyramid of biomass may be inverted. Example, in a pond, phytoplankton are the main producers. They have very short life cycles and a rapid turnover rate. That is, they are rapidly replaced by new plants. Therefore, their total biomass at any given time is less than the biomass of herbivores supported by them. The left side shows the pyramid of number grassland and the right side shows the pyramid of biomass grassland with the 3 level of trophics. And third, pyramid of energy. This pyramid represents the total amount of energy at each trophic level. Energy is measured per unit area, per unit time. For example, KCL per area per year or CAL / area a year. For example, in a lake, autotrophs, or we can call it as producers, may have energy of 2810 cal area per year, As we move producers to herbivorous, to carnivorous and to top carnivorous, the available energy decreases because the energy is lost at each level. Therefore, an energy pyramid is always upright and it can never be inverted. As you can see on the screen, it shows the graphical representation of biomass. Here is a ecological pyramids. We have completed our part 3. Thank you for paying attention.